All right, guys, welcome back to the Sex and Bacon podcast. On today's episode, I have with me Mistress Mia Payne, and we're going to talk about a few different things, kind of the healing benefits of BDSM, and then we'll go deeper into how you got into it. But first, I kind of want to share, and I feel based off the work you do, you can maybe even help me kind of maybe understand an experience that I had. So, to give a little backstory on it, I've always been interested in BDSM, but like a fearful interest in it where it's just like, I'm curious. I want a partner to maybe do some things to me. One, kind of scared to really ask, scared of like how that would look, how I would feel, if I would be safe, or if I would end up getting hurt. So I've never really explored it with a partner more than like your typical just spanking little stuff. But I was in Toronto 2 summers ago and very specifically sought out to have an experience with professional dominatrix. It was at a place downtown. I can't remember the name of it, but it was like a little house and you literally go in and you pay for kind of a session. You kind of explain what it is you're looking for. And I just said to her, like, I'm curious of BDSM, but I've never really been in a position or with a partner that I've trusted enough to, explore it and to have those conversations. So I paid this woman to do it for me. And so, I walk into this house and I think she had like just like some little corset stuff on, or she was naked, one of the two. But either way, I got down to my underwear. And so it's nerve wracking. I didn't know what to expect, but it was one of those things where she kind of explained to me, no matter what, she'll check in with me to make sure I'm okay. And if I don't like something. And so she kind of gave me the explanation of what to say, what to ask for, and how. But it's crazy. So the very first thing was she got me to kneel like a little pillow in her room. And I'm sitting there in my underwear. She's kind of bossing me around, I guess, in a sense. And the first thing she did was pull out a collar to put a collar on me. And so she did. And it was like instantaneously, my body went into sheer panic mode and I started crying. And it was as soon as I felt that collar around my neck, it was just this fear. And yeah, I cried. And so she took it off, she reassured. But to give a little, like, I guess, information onto that is I've had a few very abusive relationships where being choked was something that happened a few times, multiple times throughout the relationship. So it was all of a sudden that up. And it was just this like moment of like completely, I guess, crying. It was weird, but it's like in my mind and in my body, I want to get past this. I want to be able to move past this so that I can enjoy some of these things. And so, she calmed me down. We talked through it. And then okay, I was like, I think you can again, but put it on a little loose. Like, I want to be able to build up to having something there and feeling comfortable and safe with it. So we did. And then it was like, I was okay, but it was just this constant check-in that she did. And then we went through, did a whole bunch of other things. But I left there feeling like I was able to kind of, I guess, voice my boundary and that she respected it and she didn't push it. And I think my fear with men has always been that in the heat of a moment, they're not going to respect my boundary. They're not going to see why I'm upset, understand, and be able to back off because they're going to be so excited and they're just going to keep going. And I knew I was paying her. So it's also like you're respecting my boundaries and stuff because one, this is a paid experience. Two, and then I felt like just as a woman, she could understand what I was going through more so than say what a man would fully understand what that brought up for me. So all in all, at the end, it was a great experience. And I did leave feeling like, okay, I think I could ask a partner for this. And I think I now know how to explain to them about this check-in and the rules of it. But aside from that, I had no understanding of any of this other than that one experience. So I'm curious to hear, as this is the work you actually do with people, what that is and what the healing benefits of it are. And kind of like, I guess, explain to me a little bit why the reaction I would have had. Full circle conversation about this. So I'll give you the floor, let you introduce yourself a little bit more to everybody, what it is you do more so and how you got into it. And then let's kind of unpack some of this.
Okay, great. So hi, my name is Mistress Mia Payne and I'm the owner of Payne with Purpose. It's a self-development dungeon. And what I do is I work with people who are recovering from trauma, who would like to experience rite of passage for various reasons, people who want to push their own boundaries, test their physical limits in a safe and consensual place. So the very first thing that I always start with is that the difference between abuse and BDSM is that abuse is not consensual And BDSM, every single step must be consensual or it does turn to abuse. So in my practice, everything is laid out ahead of time and negotiations happen every second of every experience. So what you experienced was what I like to call cellular memory. So our bodies store trauma in our fascia of our bodies. It's like a web of tissue that runs underneath our skin. And emotions sort of get trapped there, especially negative emotions. Wish it was happy emotions. That'd be great. And even though we may not logically be thinking about or processing that particular emotion, it is always present in our body until we clear it out. So what you experienced was your body recalling a memory and then your fascia being sort of activated and the emotions coming forward. So in my practice, we would have stopped and worked through those emotions specifically. I would have helped you to process the actual trauma before we continued. What she did was another form. It's called titration, where you back up and you approach the fearful or triggering event in a more slow manner. So she loosened your collar. She made sure to check in with you regularly. And so that is a form of titration. So if you were working with me, I would start very slow and then move as we continue with different sessions until you're comfortable with the collar being at an appropriate size for your frame. I think another thing to remember is that every session is different. So every person is different. Every mistress interprets their needs different. It's really about finding somebody who suits what your actual needs are. Therapeutic BDSM or intentional BDSM is very different from traditional just play BDSM. Both have their value. I don't think it's any less important to have fun and just enjoy yourself. But what I do is more intentional. It's more almost like a spiritual practice. People come to me again for a rites of passage or trauma recovery primarily. They also come to me to help them deal with bad habits. So people will say, I need to lose weight or I'm trying to stop smoking. We set goals and they receive punishments or consequences when they don't reach their goals, which can be very motivating for adults. It's really fun because that's how I started. So I was a professional dominatrix in Canada for a short period of time. Then I moved my practice to New York. And when I was in Canada, it was actually, I didn't intend to go into the business. Somebody approached me and asked if I would do that for them. And never having done that, I had to learn on the spot. And I was like, okay, let's give this a try. So we did, and I did very well at it. And then when I moved to New York, I decided to have a focus in spank therapy. So people would come to me just for spanking sessions specifically. And then I developed a skill for impact play. So I'm very good at caning, I'm very good at flogging, and I'm able to help people to process emotions through activating their fascia using pain as a conduit.
Okay. You mentioned something about rites of passage. And for most people probably listening, they're like, well, what is that? Because even when you said that, I was like, I don't understand. What does that mean?
So North American cultures we're devoid of an opportunity for us to challenge ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually in a way that we walk through something and we can feel empowered by realizing the depth of our own strengths. I think it's very interesting. Like if you look at humanity, I mean, people eat stuff so hot that they cry, or they run marathons till they puke, or there's all these things that we do to our body, but nothing is ever really set aside as like, this is my goal and I would like to accomplish this goal. And when I do, I'll know myself better. I'll feel sort of cleansed and ready to embark on whatever next journey it is. Sometimes it's adulthood, sometimes it's the end of a marriage and you're starting off fresh, right? And so people will say, I have this fear or I have this physical like limit. And we'll talk about how we could push that limit in a very intense scene. It's usually done by candlelight. We do a lot of sort of spiritual ritual stuff beforehand so that they feel like it is sacred, right? Because this is a moment for them to really know themselves, really get in touch with their own empowerment. And then I walk them through something that can be very painful, high sensation, I call it. And at the end of it, they receive all the accolades and there's this high. They get very like almost a high. I have seen it change people's lives. Like people who can't ask for raises, suddenly they're confident enough to do so, right? They're nervous about approaching a member of the sex that they're interested in, and they suddenly do because they feel good in their bodies, in their skin, and who and what they are. So yeah, that would be a rite of passage.
And all just through the practice of like different BDSM techniques, it
Yes.
gives them this sense of empowerment to be able to be a different version of themselves, I guess, essentially.
Yes, or rediscover or discover parts of themselves that they didn't know existed or that they have set aside. Our culture really does put a lot of labels on people that they may not even want. Like women are supposed to be submissive, men are supposed to be dominant, right? That's a label that is like almost across the board. If you ask, this is a man, this is a woman, who is dominant? It doesn't matter who you ask. 90% of them will say the man is dominant and the woman is submissive. And it's important that we break away from those labels and know who we are. There's nothing wrong with being dominant or submissive. They're just different approaches to the same problem. But we need to know ourselves and we can't just take the labels as being true. And when people realize that those labels don't really fit them, they want to discover themselves. And that's part of what BDSM offers.
Do you find that you have more male clients looking for trauma, I guess, release and things like that? Or do you find you have more female clients that are looking for the trauma aspect of it specifically?
Actually, men. I find that men have a more difficult time with talk therapy, and BDSM, when it's at the hand of a skilled practitioner, actually has been shown recently in some studies to be more effective than talk therapy for some people. And in general, men find it much more cleansing and almost purging to have a physically tangible experience rather than talk therapy. Women often come to me for roping, so shibari, so that they can decompress, they can settle their mind, they can appreciate the beauty of their body. All of those things are more sort of what I see female identified people coming to me for.
Okay. So the men specifically, I guess, in that regard, because I know people are probably wondering, like, are they more feminine men or is it gay men or is this just straight heterosexual men that are looking to have this experience? Because I think most people think like the female is typically more the submissive, the man is more of the dominant. So if you think of like in a couple relationship, people would expect that it's the female that's being submissive and the man that's going to be playing the dom. But in your practice, obviously, you're the female, men are coming to you. So is any of it for them sexual or is it mostly just straight the other aspect, the healing benefits?
Sexual energy is different than sexual interplay, right? So in my practice, I don't do anything sexual. There's never sexual interactions. They never see me naked. It is very not sexual, but there will always be almost a tension that is sexual in nature between a mistress and their submissive. There's no direct stimulation of any kind, but just in their mind, having a woman in dominance, especially, can be attractive to men. I happen to be a lesbian, so none of that is of interest to me, which actually makes my practice really easy. But I find that a lot of the men who come to me have very high powered jobs, like astrophysicists, or I've had a lot of people who work in construction that are like big burly guys, 6'2", wide linebacker body types, and they're just looking for a break. They need to lay down the mantle of responsibility to somebody else who can mold them a little, give their brain a break, take them down a notch, help them to feel like they're not responsible for the weight of the world, right? And during that hour and a half, all they want to be told is what to do, exactly how to do it, so their brain doesn't have to turn on. And they want to be affirmed. You did that really well. I'm so proud of you. Because that lights them up. It makes them feel in a world that often takes them for granted and does not see them. They want to feel that affirmation and that building of their self-esteem and their understanding of themselves.
Just because in case somebody who is listening is probably wondering what does BDSM actually stand for? Because there that is different things in your practice that would essentially be kind of, I guess, four different types of I don't like a task or a thing, but I mean like the B like you have bondage, and then it's, if I'm not mistaken, dominance, correct? And then sadist and masochism. Is that what it is?
Sadomasochism. Yeah.
So The bondage aspect, easy to understand. That's somebody who's coming in that wants to kind of be tied up. That's the collars, the things. That could even be, I guess, the shibari, correct? The dominance aspect would be more so just somebody wanting to be bossed around and all of this stuff. So the I'm going to say that wrong again.
Masochism. It's okay.
I know one of them means it's somebody who likes to inflict pain, and then one of it means somebody who likes to have pain inflicted on them.
So think about masochism as me. So the person receiving pain is a masochist. The person offering pain is a sadist. Not all people who offer pain are sadists. So some people enjoy that and they get a charge from it, and other people do it out of service to the person who needs the pain, and it's not really something that's their thing. I do want to back up. You said something about, so yes, BDSM has 4 distinct kind of pathways, but they're always intertwined for me. So when somebody comes in, unless they explicitly say no to something, there could be bondage and pain. They could be dominance and pain. And dominance for me is not always kind of yelling or being verbally dominant. It is just my presence alone that is dominant. So it can be gentle dominance, which is more of a worshiping environment where they can be at the feet of somebody who is feminine and sort of in their feminine power and just enjoy being below them.
Okay. For the aspect of the part of it where somebody likes to inflict pain, I'm assuming your clients don't get to do that to you, or do they?
No. As the dominant in my practice, I do not allow myself to receive pain from my clients. No. I do receive pain from my partner. So I am submissive to my partner, but I am not submissive to my clients.
Okay. I just wanted to clear that because I was thinking about that. And then it's just like, because I'd recently was in a workshop where they talked about those 2 things. I was like, well, how does that work then in a business that is using BDSM? But just to have that clear. So can we talk about, I guess, just a few different things? Because people might just then be wondering, well, what all does BDSM entail? What are the different types of tools that can be used during that practice? Can we kind of give everybody, I guess, a little explanation of what some of that might be?
Sure. So there's psychological dominance, which would be things like degradation, name calling, putting people down verbally, even playing with them. I'm going to give one of my secrets away. One of my favorite things to do is to blindfold my client and lay them on a plastic mat. And my clients are all nude when I work with them. So it puts them automatically in a vulnerable state, right? So I'll lay them out on the plastic mat and then I'll boil water in a room nearby so they can hear the kettle whistle. And I'll have a glass of ice water that I just take in and I throw it on their body. They can't see what I'm doing, but their brain will assume that I'm going to pour hot water on them, right? So it scares them, but then they realize it's just cold, right? So I'm not causing any actual physical pain or harm, but it's a jolt to the nervous system, which can be really fun in psychological dominance. Then there's physical dominance, and some of that can be bondage. It can be a lot of positioning. So I'm a high protocol mistress. So I have 13 different positions that my submissives need to memorize. And they need to be able to do them at a drop of a hat, no matter where we are or what we're doing, to go into whatever position that is. This allows me to move them through a scene without having to explain in detail what I need them to do. They just automatically know how to put their body and where. But those positions, a lot of them are very vulnerable, very submissive positions. And so that can be a form of almost like a dominance moment. Then we have the pain part of it, which is actually my forte. So pain is not just delivered sort of rapid fire and then you're done. There is actually a rhythm to it, just like there's a rhythm to sex. So you want to start slow, speed up, slow down, stop for a minute, start again, go slow, speed up, right? And watching the body cues allows me to bring them to a place where all of those happy hormones from the pain and then also the relief causes what is essentially a high. So they get this very floaty feeling where they feel really euphoric. And that's the sort of end goal for me every time I do a pain scene with somebody. So for that, I use things like a flogger, which I mean, people can Google what things look like. There's so many different varieties. I have leather ones, I have rubber ones, I have chain ones. So I have floggers. My favorite tool is a whip. I have a silver hand braided, beautiful long whip, and I'm very good at it. I like to put clothespins on people and then whip them off one at a time. Super fun. And then there's things like canes. So canes can be very little rattan canes, or they can go into really big, almost like a bamboo thick cane, right? So everybody likes different kind of sensations. So if they like a stingy sensation, then maybe I'll use the rubber canes. And if they want a thuddy sensation, then maybe I'll use my really heavy rosebud flogger. So everybody has a different need, and their bodies tell me as we move through what stimulation and where is required for them to reach their end goal, which is that floaty feeling.
Okay, interesting. You'd said that your clients are usually typically naked, right? So obviously there's the healing side of this, and then for some people could just be trying to learn, what their boundaries are in BDSM, their relationship, and all of those things. So do you ever find that I know for myself, after I got out of that fear state, when I had that experience with the woman, that by the end of it, it's like I was aroused and I was like, okay, well, now this is fun. And now it's like, I wish that there was like a partner here and you're doing this. So do you find with like your clients, I mean, they're nude, they're laying there, they're exposed, that just some of the natural reaction for the men is obviously that they get, hard, and there's that aspect of it that kind of comes into play, but it just really kind of just ignored more so?
So bodies do a thing. And I just recognize that even when a man is afraid, he can become aroused. And women too. I mean, arousal is not just a sexual thing, it can just be sensation, right? And so when that happens, depending on the client, he might be sort of humiliated for the size of his erection, or sometimes I'll cane his penis, which is super interesting. And other times I'll just ignore it because it depends on the client. Are they sensitive about that? Are they embarrassed by it already? Like, how is the best way to use this moment to help them get the best experience? But there is no happy ending in my space, and they'll take it home and do what they need to.
Nice. Let's talk about some of the transformations then, because essentially you're really going into this really is on the aspect to heal. So, I mean, you've got to witness some pretty big transformations. And typically, how long does that take for, say, a client? If they come with like, this is an issue, this is what I'm going through, this is what I want to release. Is this something that is usually a quick process where it's like in 1 or 2 sessions, you're seeing these dramatic results, or is this thing something that kind of takes a little bit more time?
So it depends. So if they are experienced in BDSM and they don't need to become comfortable with the process, then the healing part of it can be faster. But there is a groundwork of trust and communication that must happen in order for them to relax and let their bodies release the trauma or talk about what's happening. I do a variety of different things that are not pain related, things like regression therapy, where they can simply get in pajamas that are childlike and hold a teddy bear, and I'll read them a book and we'll have some nurturing time. That's usually really healing for people, especially men who have not had a nurturing mother. It can be very powerful for them. I've seen very burly men sobbing because of that experience, just knowing and just feeling what it would have been like and grieving the loss of something that they wish they had. As far as how long it takes, it depends on the trauma. So with women, a lot of them come to me for sexual trauma. Sometimes it's a domestic kind of a thing, but other times it's random people. And that can take a couple of months to really access it. And then however long it takes them to work through, they tend to come to me and then it speeds up a little bit and then it's kind of slows down for a minute while they're really in the thick of it. And so it can take 3 to 6 months usually for a woman to process that and come out feeling really powerful and ready to face the fear that they've been carrying around. Men, the trauma that they come to me is usually parental or almost like a loss of themselves. That doesn't usually take as long. So usually three months or so, and they feel better. Some people come to me for anxiety and depression because the happy hormones that I'm offering in my program are actually really helpful for people who have anxiety or depression. And that is usually an ongoing relationship. One of the gentlemen that has been with me for almost 4 years, he came to me very heavily on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds. And 6 months later, he was at his doctor's office. And I never tell people to come off of meds. That's not my job. It's not what I do. They can see on them. I just need to know because they tend to bruise more if they're taking the meds. So I need to know. But he went to his doctor and his doctor said, "So what are you doing differently?" And he was like, "I'm seeing a life coach." And he was like, "Well, whatever you're doing, it's working. I don't think you need the meds anymore." So he took him off the meds, weaned him down, but took him off. And so he's been off the meds for a couple of years now. And that's a side benefit. That wasn't the goal. It would never be my goal to remove somebody from any kind of medication. Oh, and another one, there was a gentleman, every session, he talks so badly about himself. And usually he was repeating things that his mother had said to him about how ugly he was, how he was not good enough, how he wasn't successful. He wasn't doing, it was just very negative. So I took permanent marker and wrote everything he said on his body. And then I stood him in front of a mirror and we did some mirror work where we looked at that pain and we talked about where it came from. And then we rewrote the pain into something more powerful. And then that was written on his body. And then he went home and he came back changed. It was really beautiful. Yeah.
Aw, that is kind of nice, right? For you to actually then get to see the difference that it makes. I was going to ask though, when you brought up that his doctor asked him, what are you doing differently? Do you find people have a hard time explaining this therapy that they're getting from people, or that they're embarrassed to share it?
Yes. And here's the thing, back when massage therapy first came on the scene, everybody was like, "Oh, you're going to see somebody to jerk you off." Like it was an automatic happy ending. And now when your buddy's like, "Hey, I'm going to go see a massage therapist," we don't even think that because we're like, not going to a massage parlor. That's a separate service. This is a professional. They know what they're doing. They're accessing pain and trauma, sometimes even in the fascia. And so they're doing important and real work. And what I do is just sort of a little bit cutting edge and people don't understand it yet. But ultimately, the reason I do all of these interviews is because I want people to understand that it is an option and that although it might be difficult to understand, it is a real thing that does real work and provides excellent benefits. So, yeah, so I'm out here saying this is an option. If you don't want to do talk therapy, give this a try.
Absolutely. And like, don't get me wrong, as somebody who's been to probably, I don't even know, 7 or 8 different therapists in my lifetime, ones that like, your parents take you to when you first get divorced to do all the things. I can honestly say, and I'm not just shit on therapists, but to me, the goal in therapy is to get to a point you don't actually need to go anymore. There should be tangible tools or things that are physically changing in your body where you don't need to continue to see somebody, and that the triggers aren't the triggers anymore. And I did find through talk therapy, I never got there. The only type of therapy I ever did have that I think was very good was EMDR therapy, but it's a physical tool to actually move trauma on a cellular level, all those things. And that was the only thing I ever physically came out of being like, holy shit, something I've been carrying around for 30 fucking years is no longer here. So I can see BDSM in the same sense being like, as you described all of it, I'm like, this is a physical tool that has a permanent physical reaction on your body of releasing that you're getting noticeable long-term results and changes from. And to me, that's just so much more powerful than paying somebody to talk on a couch for an hour. And I mean, I can do that with my friends.
Yeah. Yeah, they're free. Yeah. And the thing is, like, women in particular, we are really good at intellectualizing our trauma and intellectualizing our feelings. So we can talk all about them very intelligently. But in therapists, that's the extent of what they can do. But with me, a woman and I were alone in the space. We are physically safe together. There is a goal that we both are focused on achieving. And words are important, but they're not the center of what we're doing. So you can't really intellectualize what is happening. There's no way. It's like a back door around it, right? Like, oh, now I'm triggered. I wasn't realizing I could be, so I wasn't sort of defending myself against it. There's an organization called the Therapeutic BDSM Collaborative Network, and I just graduated, so I'm certified in Therapeutic BDSM. And what this particular program does is pair a therapist with a BDSM practitioner, and they work together to provide service to a client. So it's a new sort of concept, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. And that's what I'm hoping to move more into. So talk therapy does have its place. I just don't think it can get sometimes to the root of the problem. And something that has a physical component can be really useful for people in healing.
Do you find with even, I guess, yourself in the practice, like how long have you been doing this now?
9 years.
Do you find that even when you tell people what you do, and it like give you the face, and it's one of those things where they assume the same thing? Because I think most people in general, this is going to sound like not a judgment, but I think this is where a lot of people's thought process goes when somebody says that they work, BDSM or in general, even like some of those other aspects of anything that sounds kink related or sexual. They just automatically assume it's some still form of like sex work or whatever. And they're not really sex positive in the sense that, they have open mind to it. So do you find that you do actually openly talk about what you do and tell people, or do you feel like you kind of keep it a little bit more reserved because of those conversations?
So this is a very interesting question because I have been very quiet about it for my whole career until about 6 months ago. I started to tell people close to me and branched off and told my ex-husband because we share children, told my older children because I'm going to be online everywhere and I want them to know what I'm doing before they get surprised by it. And I'll tell you that I have an ex who's toxic and gross, and they had been posting saying, I have a secret that will ruin her life, ruin her career. And I thought it was very interesting because I took the power out of it. It wasn't that's not why I did it, but it took out of it because now I'm leading the conversation. I can explain it in a way that helps people understand what I do and what I do not do. And I just want to make it clear that sex work is work. I do not have any judgment about people doing sex work. I probably would have loved that kind of work if I was young enough to do it now, but that's just not what I do. And so I always tell people it's not like you see in Hollywood. And no, I do not provide sexual service. Just so that they're clear. And I've told everybody. I'm with a new partner. I've told her mother in person before I posted on Facebook. I told everybody on Facebook. I'm just very out about it now. And it feels so great to be out because as I came out of the closet as a lesbian, it was like a relief. And this is a relief because I love what I do. And it's been a little difficult to hide it and to pretend like, I'm just a life coach, right? Like it takes so much of the beauty of what I'm actually doing. Oh yeah, I'm out and proud. And yeah, I'm very open about it now.
I love that you brought that up about just in general. I kind of want to talk like that you hid it for so long. It did a webinar a couple weekends ago, and in this course, taking a certificate as well to be a sex and relationship coach in that regard. But I was an exotic dancer, stripper, whatever you want to call it, for 10 plus years. And shame and guilt and judgment and all of the fear of all of this stuff was something I lived with and still I find struggle with here and there. But it's funny, until this one question was asked is, what does it mean to be sex positive? And I really had to think about that, and then kind of like the explanation for these speakers, and I was like, okay, I was just like, I have no judgment towards sex workers, anybody and anything. I think it's all wonderful, and I think people really should just do what is authentic and true to them, and who cares what somebody else is doing? But then I started to notice that even now with dating and stuff, there was times, and I don't hide that I was ever a stripper and whatever. I've talked about it openly on so many different platforms. But then when I meet a new guy for dating, sometimes it's like if I've met somebody and I'm like, "Oh, you don't seem like you've maybe lived like in the gray area of life," then I'm like, I'm reserved and scared to talk about it or tell them. And then I was like, I had to think about this whole sex positive. And I was like, well, if I'm really sex positive, then I've had no fear and judgment on myself to be able to openly share that with anybody. And then for me to think that I couldn't tell a potential partner because of that, like then I maybe have not really fully come to terms with the fact that, I did it. And then it was like that year of like, okay, this is something I still need to work on. But then fully being like, no, I am sex positive and I have a sex positive podcast. And I'm going to embrace that. And I'm going to honor that part of my life of who I was, what I do, what I talk about, the platform I give for everybody else to talk about, what they do. And then I was like, And then that is where it just, I think more people can really see that. I think the fear is always like the judgment of what you did and not who you are as the person, right? So you're obviously an amazing woman and the things that you do, but somebody could be like, "Oh, she does BDSM stuff." Oh, and then yeah, judge you.
Yeah, so I think it's important to remember that this kind of work changes the people that we work with, but this kind of work has shaped us. And to leave it out of the story almost, I don't know, does a disservice to our journey. And you don't want to be with somebody that you can't share your whole journey with. It is, you're going to deal judgment. But I have learned to look at people's judgment as just them not knowing. I think it's really sad when people are like, or whatever, or, "Ooh, that's gross," or, "I can't believe you do that." When they have that response, I think to myself, what a boring life you have lived, right? This is so sad for you. There's so many beautiful physical pleasures in this world. And when we deny ourselves the ability to experience them and then judge other people because they did get to experience it, I think it's more of a point of jealousy and less a point of actual feeling like that's a bad thing. I actually teach people how to do what I do, and I teach couples how to do it safely. That's one of the things I love to do. Like, this is a way to bond with each other, right? This is a safe place to explore new parts of yourself. And a little bit about me. So, very young, when I was 19, I was a missionary, like full on in Africa missionary. And so the journey that I have taken from fundamentalist Christian to no longer identifying as a Christian and being a BDSM worker seems very divergent. They're both healing. And so everything I've ever done has had something to do with health or healing. And so I'm right on track. I'm doing exactly what I'm here to do. And people who are called to sex work are often also healers. So it's a great thing. I think it's a benefit.
Yeah, I love that. Cost-wise then, what does a typical session cost for somebody who's coming? I mean, like, obviously, we all know kind of what therapy costs. Is this something that's a little bit more affordable in that regard than to what people are looking for?
It really depends. So on my website, there's a bunch of different services and you can see what the prices are. There's a couple of different like time lengths and what the goals are. Like a spanking session, I think is like 120 and that's 40 minutes or 30 minutes, but that's a check-in about what their goals are, how they're attaining their goals or not attaining their goals, and then the spanking session. But then there's 3-hour long BDSM sessions, which are more drawn out and more involved. Maybe there's a meal involved where they're going to cook me a meal and serve it to me and feed it to me, right? There's things that are longer, and then it's my time that people are paying for.
For sure.
People, when I vet them, so I vet my people very carefully. I don't take just anybody. And when I vet them, it's $85 for a Zoom call or to get together. But then if they book and pay for their first session within 48 hours, I take that $85 off the cost of their first session, just so that they have to invest in time with me. Otherwise, I get a lot of tire kickers where they're like, "Yeah, let's meet on Zoom," and then they don't show up. And then I've then spent all of this time waiting, preparing. As you get like your background ready and like you stop eating and you sit down at your computer, and then they don't show up, right? If they don't show up and they've paid me $85, then I haven't lost the time. A sliding scale for some people because their need for healing and this type of healing outweighs my requirement for, it's almost like their investment can be done in a different way. So let's say somebody comes to me, they're a chef, and they say, "I'm working 80-hour weeks, but I can only give you half of what you're asking for, especially if I'm going to come regularly." Then I might say to them, "That's great. I would like you to also cook me a meal once a week. So let's do an energy exchange for income." So there are prices on the website, but it's not hard and fast because I do want everybody who can benefit from this to have access to it.
No, I love that. So do you typically work a studio or you will kind of go to people in their space?
So if I'm doing a training, I like to do it in my space. I actually work out of my apartment right now, and it's not set up like a dungeon. It's very accessible, very comfortable. It doesn't feel really intimidating. It's big, beautiful 14-foot ceilings, lots of space for moving, and it's great. And then I do travel. to people within a certain radius of me. I'm located in Port Hope, Ontario right now. So I'll travel in Ontario. I'm not willing to cross the border at this point because of what's going on down there. I don't feel safe doing that. So they can come to me. We can meet halfway. We can do it in a hotel room. We can rent a dungeon for a couple of hours. If they really want the dungeon experience, we can do that. But that's on their cost, not on mine. So really it depends. It depends on what they need and where they are.
Have you ever had a request for anything that you have said no to? I will not do that. Like, what's the most extreme thing somebody has asked you to do that you're just like, yeah, we're not going to do that?
I have 2 hard limits. So I will not do scat, which is feces. So regardless of what that has to do, like I will not provide feces and I will not do anything with somebody else's feces. So if they would like a diaper being in a diaper session, then they cannot soil or they have to change themselves. So that's a hard no for me. I will allow them to drink my urine, but I will not do golden showers because then it's too intimate and they're seeing me naked. And that's a hard rule for me. If a person comes to me what we call a pain slut, where they really want high levels of pain, it is ultimately up to me when that session needs to stop. So even though they may be asking for more, if I don't feel ethically like this is a good continuing point, then I will end the session as needed. So that is a limit because I want them to be safe. I would rather miss the mark by a little bit and have them maybe not reach their fullest amount of pain. And I'm talking about extreme pain, not what most people would want, but there is a limit that I'm comfortable providing. And it's a high limit. I enjoy pain. So I'm happy providing it, but there is a limit. So if they're starting to bleed a lot, if they're shaking and unable to stand, that's where I draw it, even if they're asking for more.
The feces one, 100%. You said, I was like, ew, gross. Yeah, no, that I get that. Curious though, I guess I didn't really, well, I mean, I guess, but people wanting to drink your urine, that's interesting.
Yeah. So one of my favorite sessions. Now I was not originally comfortable with the whole urine drinking thing, but I did some research on it. I eat very clean. I am STD tested, so I'm comfortable providing it if that's something that they want. And it is an absolute act of humiliation for them to drink my urine, right? So that is ultimate humiliation for a lot of men. So I don't really necessarily love the idea of peeing into a cup and providing it. I've done that a few times. It's not like my jam. I like to make ice cubes because then I can put them in a funnel, strap the person to a table, and let the ice cubes drip, slowly melting in their mouth. So it provides a longer sense of humiliation, and I can mock them verbally while it's happening, and I can strike them on the table while it's happening, and it provides a lot more opportunity for finding what their need is and providing it. Yeah, so I'm more of a pea ice cube girl.
It's interesting because as you describe some of these sessions, it's things in my mind that I just would never in a million years think of that you can do and not that you would want to do. But I guess you can be as creative as possible in these situations, which could kind of, I guess, keep it interesting, keep it fun. But yeah, I guess. Okay. I like that. The whole dripping thing, right? Different, but better than I guess somebody just having like a beaker of pee and drinking it.
I have a giant dog bowl. And so if they are interested in pet play, sometimes if they've been really good, they can drink my urine out of the dog bowl. But they
Ah,
have to be
okay.
real good for that.
It's fascinating the things that people want. And I want to talk to though just briefly on like the shame aspect of this because I would imagine there's a lot of people that come to you with some of these requests that they feel I guess even ashamed. Do they feel ashamed in even asking you about it? And then even the thought some of these people must be in relationships and it's like they just have absolute shame and to even probably admit to a partner that this is something they do. And so with that, I also want to know then, do you have some of your clients that would consider this or view this as cheating? And where's the fine line there?
Okay. So I am very big on open communication. So if my client can notify their partner that this is happening, I actually will talk to the partner and I will say to them, hey, I'm providing this service. You are welcome at a session so you can see what I do. there will never be any sexual ever, any kind of interaction for us. So of all of the mistresses in my area, I am probably the safest because I'm a full-on lesbian. It's not going to happen, right? Because most of my clients are men. I have had some fun with husband training where the wife is so tired of repeating herself a million times about the same thing. So we'll partner up. So she will pay attention to his behavior, and she'll report back to me, and then he has to see me, right? Which is kind of fun. Gives a little spin on things, makes her feel involved and like she's getting a benefit from the service that I'm providing. I've had some really fun things happen with partners. I had one client really wanted chastity, long-term chastity. So his wife wasn't particularly sexual, but I was kind of like, this is still something I need her consent for. So I sent a note home with him, and she had to write me a note consenting. And so she wrote me the note consenting. Yes, put him in a chastity thing. It's less things for me to deal with. And so I did, locked it right up. And he stayed in it, except for cleaning, for a month. And so he was in chastity. And then when I took him out, they had a young son. And that young son was very difficult to conceive. They had like all the IVF, all the, right? And so I took him out of chastity, and he naturally conceived with his wife like 2 days later. So they have a second son. So I say that it's Mistress Mojo.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So that was really nice to be a part of that.
I like that. I like the aspect of having a partner involved in the conversations. I like the open communication. I think that's amazing and wonderful because I'm sure there's probably some men and women listening that have that thought of the worry or wanting to maybe be interested, but not sure how somebody would take it. But the fact that you actually have those conversations and explain to people, I think is like amazing. Yeah, I love that.
I want people to understand it, because the sooner that people can wrap their mind around what is happening behind that closed door, the less stigma there will be on what it is I do. More free people will be to come and enjoy those services and to understand the long benefits of it. So
No, I love it. Honestly, I wish you were closer because in my head, I'm just thinking, I was like, I want to try this. I want to try that.
come on, come stay here for a week. Beautiful here.
Where do you live? You're on like the lower end of Ontario.
Yeah. So I'm kind of an hour east of Toronto.
Okay, that's not bad. I have family in Niagara Falls, and actually, I'd gone out to Toronto because a good friend of mine lives there. That's where I had that, so I've been meaning to go back. I do want to go to a ball game, so
Well, hey, if you ever are in my neck of woods, I would love to provide service for you.
yeah, I would love that. I would love that, honestly. I think the thing is sometimes people don't realize what there is available to them, and unless they're in a very open relationship, a swingers community, and they have this lifestyle, I think they're unaware that there's services and things that they can try. That doesn't mean they have to go to a sex club or to a swingers party, but it's accessible to them.
Yeah. And the other thing is that you were talking about safety with your partner, like wishing that you could trust them, but they have to have a certain knowledge base, especially as a woman to a man. We need to know that that person, that physically stronger, usually person, is going to understand what to do, right? Because we're submitting our body to them. And so having a mistress teach using in-person instruction and helping there be a foundation of knowledge can be hugely beneficial, because then once you have that foundation, then you guys take it and make it what it is, right? Like for you guys, because it's different for every couple. But I know so many people who say, if only I knew how to do XYZ, I'd really like to try it. And I'm like, okay, let's learn. I'm happy to teach it.
I love that. I think I would feel more comfortable as well. And this is just obviously because of maybe some traumas that I've had in relationships. Because I do know a few men in the area that kind of provide some of that, the teaching and the workshops and stuff. But in my mind, and I know this is just obviously my own trauma stuff. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this is what he does. I could ask him to come over and provide a thing. But in my mind, I think it'd be in the back of my head that because I know obviously at some point I'd be turned on by this. And would have to imagine that for some men in this space, you have a half naked girl, you're doing some things to, regardless of whatever, there's going to be an arousal. I think I would have the fear that he would want to have sex with me and it would take away from me fully being able to submit to enjoying the experience versus having a woman do it. And I mean, obviously, if I got aroused, it'd be like, cool, whatever, I got aroused. But then to be able to have a sexual relationship with, say, a partner outside of that versus feeling that the man that's doing this to me wants to have sex with me. That would be hard for me to let go of, probably because of the profession I had too for the longest time. There was always that.
You have a complex set of societal and experiential expectations. Once you unravel those and realize that it doesn't matter if he wants to have sex with you, if he is a respectful dom, if the community approves him, so he doesn't have a negative reputation, then he will not force himself on you. But you have to establish trust in that situation. And in addition to all of that, women, I find when they come to me, the experience is more deep. It's much more spiritual. It's how we're made. And I love working with women because they do get that transformation so much deeper and so much richer, and the feedback I get after is beautiful. It's like a masterpiece moment. And it's funny, I wanted to also mention, so I see men, gay, straight, whatever, and I see women, straight, gay, whatever, but I will not play with a butch identified woman, so a masculine presenting woman, because I am super attracted to that. And my partner is masculine. And so she's like, I'm okay with all of this, but being naked with, or having them be naked with you in a space feels too concerning for her. And I respect that. And that's fine. So that is the only type of person that I won't play with, just out of respect for my partner.
Absolutely, and I like that you guys have that, and that you guys have that communication and those boundaries within your relationship, right?
For sure.
Yeah. No, I love that. Okay, I feel like we've covered so much and so much information that, I mean, even for myself, I was like, I'm kind of curious. I'm gonna explore this a little bit, and I will definitely come see you. But for everybody listening, is there anything else that we haven't really covered that you would like to make sure that they're aware of when it comes to BDSM itself, for these healing benefits and for all that it can be?
So, number one, be very careful who you trust, because there are a lot of people taking money who have zero understanding of what they're actually doing, really no interest in your healing or your journey. They really just want the money for the time, and you're going to walk away feeling disappointed. Two, if you choose to work with a professional, lay your shame at the door, because there is nothing you can bring to us or say to us or show us that we haven't seen 100 other times, and we are very non-judgmental, right? As long as you're moving within our boundaries. Like if you come and you poop on my floor, I'm not going to be happy about that. But if you're moving within my framework, there is nothing you can do that would shock or upset me. And we're not even really thinking about that, because we're seeing you as almost like a lump of clay that's being molded, and we're doing our very best to do right by you. And three, I would say not to be afraid to ask questions of your local kink community. You can always reach out to me. I love questions. Ask me all the questions, because I want people to be educated and I want them to make really good choices for themselves. And the last thing I would say is, if you have a religious background, it is extra difficult to recover from shame. And I would just encourage you to really look at religion's history and how much sort of self-flagellation and self-inflicted pain that almost every religion suggests or requires, and consider that maybe there's actually an element of that in your own spirituality that you can tap into.
I love that. I love that you brought in the religious aspect at the end there, because I've had quite a few interviews recently with people that have stepped outside of religion and realized all of the, I guess, how suppressed they were, all of it. So I love that you brought that up. For everybody listening, I will put all your information in the show notes, but very quickly, where can they find you at? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach out to me is Payne with Purpose, which is PAYNE with purpose.com. There's a little chat box right in there. You can just message me. It sends me directly an email. Nobody else checks it. You can say whatever you want to. It's only my eyes. And I do have Payne with Purpose on Facebook. It's a group and it's brand new. So if I'd love to have people join, I'm going to start doing some conversations on there. So if people want to learn more, be connected to a community, that's where I'm starting it up.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for all of your information, the knowledge, and just everything you shared with everybody
My pleasure.
listening and with
Thanks for
myself.
having
So,
me.
yeah, I would love to have you back actually and kind of go deeper into some of the different aspects of like the kink portion and things like that. I love these conversations. So yeah, we'll have to get that going.
Sounds
Awesome.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks.